Hey there, I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed, and let's talk about technique practice versus practicing pieces. We all prefer one or the other depending on where we're at in our playing and just the mood of our particular practice these days. But the question is, how much do you really need of each so that you constantly move forward? And that's what we're going to be discussing in this video. So the big two parts of our practice, whenever we're practicing the classical guitar, is our technique and our repertoire. And technique, just a quick definition, technique is the practice that we do specifically to build our skills. So exercises, right hand patterns, scales, anything that are chord changes, things like this, so that it's our actual skills. Now the repertoire is learning new music, polishing up music that we've already learned, working out the tricky spots, and maintaining the repertoire that we've learned in the past so that we're keeping them up and we can actually play something. Now, also just a quick note on practice versus playing. Whenever we're practicing, we're actively solving problems and doing something specific to make something specific better. Playing is playing, and we need both of those. And that's a whole different thing. Playing versus practicing is a whole different conversation. But we do need both. But it's just important to say that we're talking about right now practice. And that is when we're actively working on something. We're not just playing music. This is fun. That's not practice. Practice is I'm working on the precision, the accuracy, everything, getting my musical ideas, my swells and fades just in perfect. That's practice. So how much technique versus how much pieces do you need in your practice? It's rarely going to be a 50-50 split. You're normally going to be heavier on one than the other. And depending on where you are and what you're into right now, that's going to change. But the most important thing is that there needs to be both. All technique is going to get dry and academic, and it kind of misses the point, the cart before the horse type of thing. All pieces is not going to build our skills unless we're using the pieces strategically to practice techniques, but it's really tough to do that unless you've got a really good teacher who knows what they're doing to do that. Most people don't get better by playing just pieces. It has happened in some really high-level teachers like Roland Dyens don't like exercises and scales and just use pieces, but it takes somebody of that caliber and working with somebody like that to actually make that work. Instead, we need both. And so how much of each do you need? Well, as much, if you're just beginning, if you're in your first few years, then as much technique as possible is generally going to be a great idea. But then also you could say as much pieces as possible as well, because we also need to work on the other skills of memory, reading music, all these different things. The bottom line is that we need both. And so in your practice, you're probably going to prefer one versus the other. Some people love to play pieces and don't want to play any kind of technique. It's just like pulling teeth to get them to play a scale or to do anything like that. And so some people are the exact opposite, and they just want to play scales all day and don't want to play their pieces. So for you personally, the trick is to set a baseline minimum for each practice. And it can be just a little bit, just so that you're doing something. It could be, I'm going to spend 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever it is, working on this and doing really focused exercise on hammer-ons, or pull-offs, or scales, right-hand pattern, whatever it happens to be, that you set yourself a baseline minimum that you'll do in each practice. And know that as long as it's good 85% of the time, then you're great. So on those days where you just can't do it and you just, like, your stomach turns when you think about it, then skip it, and it's okay, so long as you do it the next day, right? Just don't skip more than one practice on it. Same thing with pieces. If you're into your technique, then get a piece of music and be working on it and touch on it every single day, even if it's just playing through a couple of the little small sections or something like that, whatever it happens to be. So that's the bottom line, is just do both, balance them out. And as you move forward in your playing, then you might notice that you have some sort of weakness in one area. And then you can put that, if you have a piece and you love playing it, but it has this big scale section that's hard to play, Oh, I'm not in drop D. But as long as it's hard to play, then you might be inspired to then play some scales. So you can take your needs of your pieces and work on the specific things of that in your technique practice. Make exercises out of them, whatever it happens to be. Likewise, in your technique, if you're really into something, you can look for a piece that will use that so that it still feels like you're practicing your technique and keeping them rooted together. Right, I hope that helps. The main thing, the bottom line of all of this, just do both in every single practice and you'll be good to go. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and thanks so much for watching. See you soon.